everyone, I think I'm live now. I'll just wait for a couple of people to join. Sorry about the mess and the slight change of plans for tonight. We're supposed to go live with Fran, as always, as Locked and Loud, but unfortunately Fran's a bit poorly, so we're going to have to change things up a little bit, but not to worry, because I just figured I'll slip in for Fran, because why not? And yeah, hopefully, hi Karen. Please just let me know whether you can hear me properly and whether you can see me and stuff, because before when I've gone live, I've only gone live on my phone, so it's a bit different how the webcam actually reacts on the actual laptop, so I'm not quite sure if it's going to work as well. I mean, to me, it looks fine as of now, but it might look completely different to other people, so I'm not sure how it's gonna react. To change of lights. Hi Vic. Oh, amazing! Thank you so much. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you guys for letting me know. I've just got my phone ongoing as well, just to make sure that I've got all the updates at hand as well. So yeah, Vic, you probably missed that. So basically, Fran is poorly tonight, so I'm doing the live on my own tonight, still as our Locked and Loud series though, because I'm just basically stepping in for us both. So hopefully I'll be able to answer everyone's questions nonetheless. So tonight I wanted to sort of talk about death in custody in general, because because we've recently obviously had a big case with Ian Huntley dying in custody, and now we also found out about another, let's call it a celebrity death as well. What was his name? John Shannon, I think. I have no idea who he is, to be completely honest with you guys. So to me, it's not really a celebrity death. It's just another sex offender dead. So yeah, I think it's quite important because people are talking about it these days, and they don't really know the processes at all. They just think, I mean, some people still think that prisoners are being just buried in the backyard of prisons, because that used to be the like, not procedures, but just what used to happen. So yeah, I'm gonna go through, hopefully bit by bit, sort of what happens straight away, so like the first 24 hours, who gets told, what gets investigated, where the coroner comes in, what the PPO does, and like sort of things that families should really know realistically, and if they've got any beliefs that any failures have happened procedurally or otherwise, what questions they should be asking, and roughly who they should be asking for answers. So, I mean, if anyone here still doesn't know me, I'm Dagna, and I used to be a prison officer in the UK for 6 years. I've had various roles within my prison. I worked in a male establishment. It was a YOI, so a Young Offenders Institute, and then we moved on to being a full adult prison. So I've got no experience in female jails, hence why I do these things with Fran, because she brings that sort of perspective into it. But like I said, tonight I'm on my own, so I can't really answer any questions about female jails. It's only male ones. So yeah, there are executed prisoners remains in some prison walls. I fully believe so. I mean, especially in the old Victorian ones, I fully believe it. There'll be prisons with grounds where you could probably go in and still find some remains. I fully believe, but it's not the case these days, hopefully anyway. So yeah, if you've got any questions, drop them in. But I am going to go through it sort of properly bit by bit. I've sort of structured it for myself, so I don't just like stop talking. And hopefully everything will be explained. So let's start off with what death in custody actually is, because even on my TikTok, I've seen a lot of comments, or even on Facebook. Um, oh well, such and such died in a hospital, so you're lying because it's not a death in custody. It is. It doesn't really matter whether it's a death in the prison, whether it's death at the police station, or whether it's in remand jail. It doesn't matter. It's still a death in custody, because the second you're arrested, you are sort of in custody of the state. So it doesn't matter whether you then move to the hospital, you're still technically in cuffs, you're still got people that are in charge of your safety and well-being, so you definitely will be classed as death in custody. Now, what happens immediately 24 hours after? Because the process differs slightly between the prison and the hospital, and I have gone through it in the episode that I dropped. Was it on Monday or Wednesday? I think it was Wednesday. Breaking down death in custody based on Ian Huntley's case. And in custody, it depends. Oh, hi, Levi. In custody, it depends where the death occurred. If it happened in a cell, the cell will be immediately secured. The body won't be immediately touched or moved. It depends also whether the death has been found. Hi. Whether the body has been found already sort of in the deceased state, or whether it was a sort of an attempt, whether there was an attempt to preserve life, because I've been in those situations several times where you open the door or you open the obs panel and you find someone ligatured. They are very, very resourceful in the way they do it. And it's really sad sometimes how much effort someone would go into to actually end their life in that way. I found people suspended from the fire alarm cages. I found people suspended from the light fixture. I found people suspended from the bed frame. And I know what you're thinking, bed frame is not a very sort of highly placed fixture within the cell, but if someone wants to do it, they will manage even on a bed frame, or even on the like cabinets or anything like that. So even on the obs panel, sometimes if they break it or bend it in a certain way, so it's really, really sad. And I think Vic, you asked me in the community post whether if something's been deemed a suicide, whether the process is slightly different, or if it seems like a suicide, whether the process will be different. And the straight up answer is no. So obviously every death will be treated with the same level of sort of seriousness and diligence. So even if at first it looks like suicide, the cell will be still sort of secured in the same way. And then the police has to be called in immediately, obviously, and PPO and the coroner. Now, as soon as the coroner comes in, no one really, I can only speak from experience from my jail. When I say no one really cares and tells you that it's just a part of the job, I'm not really over exaggerating. There might be people who'll be brilliant and they'll approach you and say, like, are you all right? Like, do you want to talk this through? Do you want to have a cup of tea? There should be a process in place, which is basically a TRIM team. So it's a trauma risk management team that should have a chat with you within the first hour, then the first week, and then within the first month, to see how you're processing it. They are not counsellors per se. I was a part of the TRIM team, and basically we score you on how you're dealing with things and whether you're processing things the same way as what's expected. So, for example, within the first hour, you'll still be in shock. You'll still be quite distressed. You'll still be sort of reliving it all in your head. But then if it still happens week in, and then a month in, and you're still having the same level of flashbacks, you're still having the same level of nightmares and stuff like that, clearly you're not processing it properly, and you need to be signposted to a proper counsellor or basically like a trauma therapy. But going back to the suicides, so police has to still be called in, coroner comes in, and coroner says straight away, obviously police, what I found as well, you'll find on my own, I'll digress in 15 different ways, okay, so just forgive me. But the prison itself shouldn't be taking any photographs of the cell. Now, if there are any life-preserving measures happening just prior to death, so obviously we found someone who, let's say, ligatured or who was ODing actively and we're trying to preserve life, obviously the cell won't be undisturbed. There will be some kind of disturbance in the scene itself. But as soon as we realise the person, according, let's say, to the healthcare, is dead, then we need to get someone to confirm the death, blah, 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 blah. And that's where a coroner comes in. But as soon as healthcare says, that's it from our point, like that person's gone, everyone has to leave, or should leave anyway. And then the scent is preserved for the police and for the coroner and for the PPO. No photos or videos should be then taken in that cell by the prison themselves, because if they go in, they can further disturb the scene, and that's unacceptable. It's for the police and then the coroner and PPO to make those, to collect this evidence and to preserve it rightly and correctly. And when police says, right, we've got all the evidence we need, we've taken pictures, let's say where the body was laid, stuff like that, then the coroner takes care of the body, and it's up to them what happens to the body. And even if it does seem like a self-inflicted death, it's still the same process, because like you said, it might be suspicious. So if the person, even in the community, if the person was found dead and we don't know the cause of death, it's still treated as a unexplained death or death without a certain cause. If someone happens after a long-term illness, again, it's up to coroner to then decide. But usually, like I said, even in the community, if the death seems violent, as in it's a result of an injury or some kind of attack, or it's a death that's unnatural and unexpected, then the coroner comes in and has to investigate whether there was a suspicious sort of part to the death. So in a way, it gets handled the same way as any other death in custody. It's just less obvious sometimes. And then obviously if they discover any kind of foul play, then obviously that gets, police deals with it more than the coroner, because the coroner only looks after the body, right? They only examine it and ascertain the cause of death itself. They won't make any assumptions as to who did it or how they did. Well, not even how they did it, because they can just say, well, it was a blunt force trauma, whether it was done with a hammer or a pipe. We don't know, but it must have been, let's say, a blunt object. Or this seems like a self-inflicted death because it was suspension from whatever part of the cell, but they wouldn't be able to tell you exactly what happened. It's just what's the result that's sort of shown within the body. So yeah, first 24 hours. Hang on a minute. Oh, my cat got trapped in the room. So yeah, first 24 hours in the custody, with a death in custody. Like I said, body is found. If it's found on the grounds, then it's the area that gets secured. I've never personally seen or even heard of anyone finding a body that's not inside the cell, or obviously a hospital. I've never heard of a death that would be like within the grounds, but I would presume it's the same sort of process for it. So You secure the scene, you preserve the body, you don't move the body straight away. As soon as the coroner comes in and says, all clear, take the body to the morgue for a full autopsy, after police has taken pictures and secure the potential crime scene, then the body can be moved. So first thing, you open a cell, find the body. You need to obviously report it to the orderly officer. You need to go in and at least try and preserve life. Even if you think that the person is already dead, it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter whether they are blue in the face and cold and stiff. You still have to go in and try to preserve life because you are not medically trained to pronounce someone dead. That is up to healthcare to then do. So as an officer, I would still have to go in to make sure that, I've at least given the person a chance of survival. The company was attacked within the grounds. I was on here workshop or something. Yes, he was a part of, I believe, waste management work group. However, he didn't die on scene. That's the difference. So obviously the scene would be secured and CCTV will be secured, but the death occurred what was it, about 2 weeks later, something like that. And it was within the hospital. So the scene of the actual attack would have been already dealt with and cleaned and stuff like that. So as long as it's on CCTV and stuff like that, they wouldn't need to preserve it any further. Then the hospital would have to be treated as the scene of death in custody still. I've lost my train of thought. I can't remember what I was talking about. Oh yeah, so you go in as an officer, you still try to preserve life. It doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter whether you believe they are already dead or not. You still have to go in and try and save life. Then obviously healthcare gets there, the orderly officer gets there, and then it's them who then, so it's upper management who deals with contacting the police, contacting the coroner, contacting the PPO, which is Prison Probation Ombudsman. So it's up the chain of command who actually deals with it then. And again, the scene is secured, so the cell gets locked in. There's like a special security lock that you can put on the cell, so only security who has the key can access that cell, and obviously then it's handed to the police for investigation. It depends on the prison. The landing can be potentially cleared, or the cell could be sort of cordoned off. It depends where it is, to just restrict the footfall around the potential crime scene. Then all the documents, all the CCTV, everything that was even remotely linked to the prisoner and his condition gets pulled. So CCTV gets secured within the violence reduction department. Let's just call it safer custody. Pardon me, they check whether the prisoner was on an act. So they check if he was prone to suicide or self-harm. They check what markers he had, or she, I suppose. They check who he associated with prior. All of this documentation is collected and then passed on to police and PPO for their investigation. And at the same time, you can have various investigations happening at the same time, because the prison might be doing their own because they want to know what happened, and sort of operationally they have to step in to sort of manage ongoing running of the prison. Then the PPO has their own investigation, police has their own investigation because they are dealing with potentially criminal matter, and then the coroner has their own investigation as well. And then they all get pulled together, and then where it goes is the coroner's court. That process can be months. It's that brutal. It can be months. Sometimes, if it's straightforward, it won't be that long. However, from my experience, it takes a long time. As soon as it's reasonably possible, And I have to be careful here because reasonableness will be different thing to one person and different to another. But as soon as it's reasonably possible, the family should be contacted. So the next of kin. Now, sometimes it can take hours from when the person was found, purely because operationally it won't be possible because there is too much going on for just a random officer on the landing to go, oh, by the way, your partner, your brother, your father, whatever, your son is dead. We can't do that. We need to contact the family and give them information onto what happened. So we need to first gather the information as to what has gone on to then be able to notify them. I've had several people contact me and say, well, the prison never contacted me until hours later. And as brutal as it is, and it's very, very sad, and on a sort of empathy level, yeah, they should have been contacted, as soon as you, as a family member, you want to know as soon as possible. However, operationally, it's just not possible because you need to secure the scene. You need to remove everyone that's around it because now we are preserving the scene of potential crime if it's unexplained. You need to contact, like I said, police, PPO, and the coroner. So they need to then come out. If they can't come out immediately, they need to designate someone to come in and actually pronounce the death that's occurred. That can take some time. Depends where you are, depends where the nearest, doctor or qualified doctor is. If it happens in the morning and there is a GP within the prison, maybe they could do it. But it's just not as simple and it's not as straightforward operationally anyway. So yeah, sometimes it can take hours, and they should be contacted by someone called family liaison officer. Now, it's a touchy subject as well with family liaison officers because I've heard a lot of families that were mistreated by family liaison officers, and it's really, really sad, and it's very hard hitting for me because just before I left for the last near enough year of my service, I was basically on the list to be a family liaison officer. That was the one last qualification that I needed and wanted. I've done everything else, but I just never made it because they didn't have spaces. But it needs to be handled very delicately. Now, if the death is not deemed suspicious, so if the coroner says, listen, we've called the time of death, we've pronounced the death, we then need to obviously have a initial investigation to sort of determine what had happened. Now, I think your comment just disappeared, or has it disappeared for me, or have you just deleted it? Because I was going to answer it in a second. Sorry. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the coroner. So sometimes the family can be just contacted via phone call, and again, that to some people will seem very cold and very procedural and very unempathetic to the family. However, again, and I'm not defending the prisons because it shouldn't be that way. Every family should get a notification face to face. That's the least amount of respect. But operationally, it might not be possible because what you need to know is family liaison officers, they are just normal officers. I, as a normal officer, I held about 5-6 different roles. I wasn't being paid extra for any of it. Family liaison officers, it's awful. Yeah, in a way it comes with the job, and you sort of have to just deal with it, but nothing prepares you for it, no amount of training or anything like that. So yeah, family liaison officers will just be normal officers. They'll be carrying out the same duties day in and out. They'll be normal landing wing officers. And then when something like that happens, because hopefully it happens rarely within an establishment. My jail literally had I think one death in 2017, and then we had four last year. But in the period in between, we had none. So the family liaison officers weren't used at all. However, if it's not possible for them to go out because of operational reasons, because the prison is short-staffed, and again, that's not an excuse, it's just a harsh reality, then they can't come out and they have to make that phone call to the family. But I understand why it would be upsetting to the family. And from then on, the prison family liaison officer should be relaying all the information between the family and the prison, back and forth. So if there is any explanation or any progress within the case, inviting the family to view the cell, inviting the family to like put them in contact with the coroner to be able to view the body before the autopsy, then that should be done through a family liaison officer. Now, whether that happens or not, it's up to every establishment and how they deal with it, whether they've got trained for family liaison officers. We didn't for a long period of time. They were either out of date or just not present. So it really depends on the prison. Does the governor get involved at the scene, or do they do usual sitting on the desk doing paperwork? It depends. Again, when we had our deaths in custody, one of them was, I think, in the cell itself. The rest, the other three were in hospital. Duty governor has to be obviously immediately notified, and they will usually, I would imagine so, stroll down to the scene, but it will be within the chain of management. There will be probably the ones who will be contacting the prison and probation ombudsman. They'll be notifying the coroner, they'll be notifying the police, or they will be delegating the operational sort of function of the prison. I can't imagine they'll be stood at the scene, delegating the scene. They will have someone doing it for them. So they'll be doing all the sort of, I don't want to say more important bits, but kind of, if you know what I mean. So basically, you can't have just a random landing officer who's never dealt with a death in custody ringing up police and just like babbling for half an hour. You need someone who's been trained in it and done it before. Now, I was going to say something else. Also, their body, when it gets sorted by the coroner, they will not really release the body to the family, not until their investigation process has been completed anyway. Might view the body before the autopsy, might be invited to that, but then the body won't be released until the full investigation have been completed. And it must be extremely hard, because imagine your close one dying in custody, you've not seen them since, let's say, last visit, and you just want to see them. You want to be able to make your last goodbyes and farewells, and someone just tells you, well, until we've investigated you can't come. And it's as simple as that. It must be extremely hard. But unfortunately, that's the process. So even though they are in deep shock and grief, or have any kind of immediate answers, they will have to wait, and that'll probably be the worst part of it all. It is heartbreaking, I fully agree, Beck. It's very brutal. Everything about death in custody, even if it's straightforward, self-inflicted death, is quite brutal, because even on its own, death in custody, I think it's pretty traumatic, especially for the families, not just for the person who found them, but especially for families. So now, what the coroner does and what the PPO does, because these are not the same things, and it's not the same process, and they focus on different things, if that makes sense. So the coroner's role is actually not deciding criminal guilt. So they won't investigate and then say, well, I think Miss Cook has done A, B, and C and failed here, here, and here, and she should be sacked. Like that's not what happens. Um, the coroner just looks at the whole process. So who died? How did they die? When and where? And then separately to that, that's a very sort of bottom line of the investigation. But then separately, the PPO then investigates as an independent sort of route to the prison and the coroner. Pardon me. So um, it's basically preventing the prison doing its own homework kind of thing. They are not supposed to be biased. They should be able to find any shortcomings. That's why the prison can't do it themselves, not to cover any tracks, if that makes sense. Um, so the prison might say very little, like themselves as a spokesperson. The prison might say very little publicly at first, purely because the PPO and the coroner and police have their own investigations ongoing. So they, as a prison, can't really comment within the process. And the coroner actually, they look very broadly. So especially if it happens in a hospital, they more focus on the medical side of things, because obviously, we know when and where they died because they had medical staff around them, but they need to investigate the cause of death and then look at the trail as to what had happened in custody. So, for example, as it was in Huntley's case, yes, he was in a hospital. He had a grievous injury. So what the coroner was looking at, he wasn't just focusing on, okay, well, cause of death was blunt force trauma. They also looked at what was happening sort of prior to it. So they'll be pulling all records from the prison. Did you know anything about this? Did the CCTV or any records suggest that something like that might happen? Was he on the self-harm and suicide prevention plan? Was he allowed to go to work when he wasn't supposed to? Things like that. They look at the entire picture, like sort of holistically, rather than just focusing on, okay, well, John Smith died at 12:15 in the workshop or in the hospital, and the cause of death is, I don't know, a stroke kind of thing. They will look at everything around it. So it's not just very simple who, when, where, and how. It's a huge, huge picture and very detailed one. They are very, very anal about it, if if you allow me. Now, yeah, the suspected suicides. Uh, there usually won't be any press releases about them as well, because I know Vicky were quite interested in that, um, especially when it comes to the coroner's part of things and investigations. They will be looking at whether there was any self-harm or suicide risks. I had a family member contact me, I think it was literally yesterday or 2 days ago, um, about the partner being on a sort of vulnerable situation, previous history of self-harm and suicide attempts, and he was against policy in prison. He was allowed a dressing gown strap, or a, like, the wrap around it. Now, her claim is quite valid that he shouldn't have been allowed it anyway, because even on its own, it can be used as a weapon. And I know you might laugh and think, well, it's only a dressing gown wrap, like string. You can't really do much with it, but actually you can. That can be used as a weapon against an officer or a fellow inmate to strangle them or anything like that. So they shouldn't be allowed anyway. So when the coroner comes in, they'll be looking as to, well, why did you authorize the dressing gown wrap? Why did you potentially ignore the markers about self-harm and suicide attempts? Because that puts that person in at risk. Because if he didn't have that and then committed suicide, then you know, if he used another item, then we wouldn't be exactly shoelaces, anything. That's what I meant at the beginning. The people in prison, when they've made a decision to harm themselves in that way, they will go sometimes to extreme lengths to accomplish what they've set out to do. And it's just really, really sad how far people can go to. And I've seen, them J cloths, like really thin ones, that you can use for like washing plates or like whatever. I've seen a ton of them, because usually we would give them to the lads just to clean their cells, wipe dust and stuff. And this particular lad tied them, like sort of swirled them around together, tied them all up, and made a ligature out of it, and they didn't snap. So it's really, they can make everything out of nothing sometimes. What was I talking about? The suicide again. So yeah, they look at what risks were potentially ignored, were they recorded, were they not picked up, whether they were managed properly and accordingly, were any healthcare concerns followed up on, whether that person has, for example, put any complaints in, let's say about a nurse failing to give them his medication, anything like that, or him requesting an appointment with the doctor saying, I don't feel well, please give me a GP appointment, whether, nurses might have just chucked it and never arranged it, kind of thing. That all matters. It's all very neatly recorded and needs to be pulled. So again, the details that are sort of gathered are extremely crucial, because people, when police and coroner comes in, and especially the PPO as well, they will be asking about everything, and I mean everything. And every time a member of staff is questioned on it, they sort of make it not your fault, but they question you in a way as if it was. So let's say you were an officer on the landing and you found someone in the cell. Luna, what do you want? My cat is very unhappy that she's actually hooked in the room. The questions will be, well, miss, did you know that that person was, let's say, on an act? And if you say, well, no, I wasn't actually aware, because this isn't my normal wing, and I didn't realise. I've never worked with him before. The next question will be, well, why didn't you realise? If you've come on the wing, you should have checked all the documentation laid out on the desk, and you should, Luna's made an appearance. Can you come and get her, please? Luna, you're not helping. Say hi, everyone. You're flurrying around. So do you mind? The questions are very, very brutal. It's as if it's your own fault. Why did you not know? Did you record it? If you knew about the act, did you check on it properly? There was, let's say, 2 checks an hour set out in the... Thanks, babe. She was very unhappy being locked up in here. Normally with Fran, it's usually Marble and Snowy that come in, and Oreo maybe, not Luna. But yeah, so it's a case of, did you know about the risk? Did you check the OBS book? Did you note anything in the OBS book? If that person, in your opinion, you knocked the door for the first time and they were okay, and then 3 hours later you were still on shift and you found them dead in the cell, have you noticed anything? Why did you not notice anything? Surely they were acting a bit differently, or surely they seemed poorly to you. Did you notice anything? Did you log anything? Did you contact orderly officer about it? Did you contact healthcare? It's very much trying to establish, not whose fault it is, but kind of, and it can feel very personal, like sort of personal digs at people. So it's all staff usually that gets pulled is people that were sort of meaningfully involved. So people on the wing in the last sort of couple of weeks working with that person, any nurses that were dealing with that particular person, any senior management. Pardon me if I sound really stuffy, but I'm still battling my cold. Um, so yeah, everyone that even remotely, for example, answered that person's complaint, everyone gets pulled in and asked why, how, why not, why did you know, all of these things. In the meantime, I know I'm just blabbling for the last 4 minutes, but if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to ask, because it's such a vast sort of subject that I could just be here for hours and talking. But if there are any particular questions that you want answering, just let me know. In the meantime, the families. So, what families should be asking and should be looking at. This is more a practical side now. So feel free to, if you ever meet anyone who's in that situation, please send them this video or one of my recorded videos, because there is a lot of practical advice that I'm about to share. So you want to ask questions early and always make a record of who you speak to, when you spoke to them, and how you spoke to them. So we are always taught in the prison that you always write date, time, and place. So at this date, at this time, I spoke to such and such person on the phone. And then the information that that person shared. You want to be asking, what time was the person found? Who found them? And if they say, oh, I can't give you details of an officer, you need to press for it. I mean, if they don't share it straight away, I don't know if they can actually withhold that information. They normally shouldn't have any issues with it, but again, it depends on the knowledge and experience of the person who's answering the call. So they might share that information. Then whether the death happened, whether it was in healthcare hatch, whether it was in their cell, or they landed in the workshop or in the hospital. Ideally, the family should be notified that they have been in hospital for a prolonged period of time and the prognosis isn't the best, so they can come and visit with their duty governor's permission. But if someone goes out on an escort to the hospital, even when Huntley, let's say, went to the hospital straight after his injury, his family wouldn't have been informed straight away. It's only when the medical prognosis given by the doctors in the hospital is, you should get the family in, it's not going to be long now. Because it's just, again, I know it might seem very cold and very calculated and very unempathetic to the families. However, it's a huge security issue. If we were letting know everyone about every single time a prisoner comes out on a escort to a hospital, the potential for contraband, smuggling, or potential escape risk is huge. So we wouldn't be able to do that straight away. So it needs to be medically necessary, as in the doctor will say, this is where the family should step in. So yeah, where the person died, then was the death pronounced at the scene by the coroner or a qualified person? So it might have been like a prison GP, or whether they were taken to hospital and then pronounced a death. Obviously, has the coroner been informed? Has the PPO been informed? And again, that is normal procedure, but that doesn't mean that every prison will follow it straight away, because I know there are prisons that are just shambolic. Let's call it that. So I fully understand, and this is why I'm saying the family has to ask this. Then again, do the question should be simple. Do you have a family liaison officer that I'll be working with? And if yes, what's the name? I want to know who I'll be talking to. in relation to that investigation as to my loved one's death. Then obviously when it comes to evidential side, is the CCTV being preserved? Are all the records, logs, observations, anything sort of physically recorded, is that being preserved? Because if the person says, oh yeah, of course, and then something's found missing, then there should be more questions being sparked. Pardon me. And then another question is the post-mortem, and that question should be then laid through family liaison officer to the coroner, and then they should be able to decide whether they can view the body before the autopsy, and then obviously after the body's released. And the thing is, why I'm saying this all basically is families don't know until it's too late. So families shouldn't be having to figure all of this out, what to ask, when to ask, how to ask, who to ask, when they are in shock, when they are grieving, and when they are just being hit with information like your loved one died in custody and we suspect strongly it's a suicide, or your loved one has been attacked and now they are in end-of-life care in hospital. That moment is not for them to be then figuring out, who do I ask? What do I ask? What do I do? It should be a case of, okay, I'm in shock, I'm grieving, this is horrific, and I've got this, and I don't need to worry about it anymore. This is something that I can ask later on, and I know exactly who to ask and what to ask. I think I know the answer to this, but do the other prisoners get any form of support after death in custody? That's another thing I skipped. I completely forgot. Part of the investigation, especially if a cell was shared, the cohabiting prisoner will be questioned as part of the investigation. Now, whether that prisoner gets any support, mental health wise, or therapy, I'm not going to say yes with all certainty, and I think you guessed the answer correctly. I would love to say yes. I would love to say that absolutely we support them all, but it's the same way that some prisons treat their staff. And the unfortunate reality is that no one will think about that. They might come in, or there might be a mental health team or a key worker that's going to approach that person and say, how do you feel about that? Are you all right? But he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, whatever. And they will never be asked again. And any trauma educated person should know that trauma can be dormant for a long time and can be suppressed and can come out at their least expected time. So they should be given an ongoing mental health support. I was in a situation, I think I spoke about this with Fran. I basically found someone actively trying to ligature and suspend themselves. And he barricaded the door, so we couldn't really go in immediately, and we couldn't really help him straight away. But I was the first one on the door because I was a qualified negotiator, like a hostage negotiator, and anything to do with talking people out of the things that they were currently doing. So I was the one to then speak to them. And I had to talk him through the entire process, knowing what he's doing, hearing what he's doing, hearing how he's doing it. And then we went in and we stopped him. He was fighting us. And he was one of those who tried to suspend himself from a bed frame, like a metal bed frame. And after that, it happened on an evening. So we spoke to them for about, I'm going to say, an hour after it happened, because we wanted to settle him enough to be able to, relieve him in that cell. overnight, or decide then it will be a decision for management to put him in a constant observation cell. But I've managed to settle him down, and he said, like, okay, I need to look forward for tomorrow. Like I said, listen, I'm gonna be on shift tomorrow on this wing. It's fine. You were meant to be getting a haircut, blah 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 blah. It's very basic things that I said to him, but it was a case of he was looking forward to the next day. So I knew it was safe to leave him. I went home that day way after 9 o'clock, and on the way away from the cell, no one particularly asked me if I'm okay. No one really asked me whether I'm okay to drive home. It was just a case of pat on the back and like, oh, thanks for that, Dagna. You know, you're doing well. That was a good effort, team, kind of thing. And it's like, but not really. Good effort, team, is when we've completed a project together, not when we just saved someone's life. Yeah, it's a great team, but great team effort. But you know, there was a bit more to it than that. And the next day, I came to one of the managers, and I expressed to him, I am not coping well. I said it was the first time that I've witnessed something like that. Every time, if I found someone suspended, they were already suspended, and they never really, I don't know, it just never really bothered me in the same way. Like, obviously, I was responding emotionally and stuff like that, but I never saw the entire process, or never witnessed it, or never heard it. I just dealt with the situation that was at hand. Whereas with this lad, I was there for the entire process. I heard what he was doing. I was trying to stop him. I was trying to talk him out of it, and he just wasn't listening. And the manager looked at me and went, "Oh, really? That was your first time? Oh, I get them all the time. Don't worry about it." He turned around and walked away. And I was just there like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just get on with myself and just wait for the next one, I suppose. You know, it was just really shocking, to be honest, that no one really cared. That's how prison deals with things like that. It's just a case of move on and kind of wait for the next one and deal with that one as it comes. There is no, as much as everyone would like to think there is a lot of trauma-informed care and everyone focuses on mental health, no one really does. Let's be realistic, especially not when it comes to staff. That's they'll tell you there is, oh, that you've got care team, you've got PAM assist, you've got Samaritans. But especially for me, if you're going through something like that, you're not going to be thinking about ringing a stranger to just talk it out, because you also want to be given practical things as to how to get over it. Especially as an officer, you're literally looking for practical solutions to problems. That's literally your job. That's how your brain is wired. And so Samaritans never worked for me. After that incident, I was begging for occupational health assessment, because again, no one from the trauma risk team spoke to me. So I thought to myself, well, I'm trauma risk trained, so I'll just crack on and I'll score myself in a way. I'll be my own trauma risk person. And I was scoring myself an hour later. I was scoring myself a week later, and I was scoring myself a month after. And when after 2 months, when I still was having flashbacks, I was still having nightmares, where my family, my parents, my then husband, my children were hanging themselves in front of me. I was having nightmares that I'm being attacked on my own wing by my own cleaners, kind of thing, cleaners workers that I really got on with. I kept having those vivid nightmares that something is happening to me in the prison on my wing, And I kept saying, I'm not dealing with this. I need someone. And I don't want to go off sick because I know we already strained staff wise. I want to carry on working, but I want support. I need support. And I think it's only because I'm that kind of person who perseveres and just carries on asking. I went eventually on sick, and that's when it got triggered because they couldn't ignore it anymore. But otherwise, my manager wasn't interested at all. He was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. But everyone always saw me as one of the like strong people, strong-minded women. And it's like, oh, well, she's all right. Out of all the people, she'll be all right. It'll be fine. It wasn't. I've dealt with a lot of things and I never needed therapy before or since actually. And then it hit me. So yeah, people just don't really deal with these things very well. Question's been absolute. Thank you so much, Vic. To criminology and psychology student. Actually, funnily enough, I'm a law and criminology graduate, and to be honest, I would have loved to have these kind of talks in uni, especially because a lot of psychology and criminology students then go on to being either probation or prison staff. And oh god, they just don't know what they're going into. And no amount of conversation, even with people like me, will explain to them how fucking awful it can be. Majority of the days are boring. They're really boring. It's just routine that you just get drilled into. But when something happens, it can be really challenging. And there's no amount of training or practice that you can do to prepare yourself for it, unfortunately. But yeah, I would love to. I would love to go into some unis and give talks. But considering I've only started doing this whole Inside Out Justice thing in December, I think I still have time to progress myself into unis. And then, what else was I wanting to touch up on? Oh yeah, so where most of failures can happen, or I've seen happen, or I've heard of happening, is the execution of it. Because I've explained the process, and it should be very straightforward. All the documents should be produced to the prison, to the not prison, the police, to PPO, and the coroner. However, if there is checks missing, if there is documents missing, if there is observations missing, then we have an issue. And I would love to sit here and tell you that no cover-ups happen, but they obviously do, because people want to preserve their jobs and they want to, they don't want to get the ass handed to them, essentially. So communication can be poor, especially with family liaison officers. If they aren't very trained or very experienced, it might be very difficult. Important details can be lost. I've spoken recently to Deborah. If Deb ever watches it, hi Deb, I love you. Whose fiance sadly passed away in a hospital following a battle with cancer. And he could have been saved. And she, for example, got sent an ID and a wallet, and she thought to herself, oh my god, this is something to remember my fiance by. This is so dear to me. And she opened the package, and she received an ID and a wallet of another prisoner. Completely unrelated. She didn't know who that person was. And she was additionally traumatized by that, because then she thought to herself, is there another family whose a loved one died and I just received his wallet? Or has someone just robbed another existing, still alive prisoner and their prop and send them to me? Like, how bad is that? When she told me that, I was like, what? How does that even happen? You're sending documents to this particular family. This is the details of a person that you're sending, and you're sending them someone else's ID and wallet. That's just bizarre to me. There was a lot of things that went missing from his cell. Not all the paperwork got sent back. A lot of paperwork was missing. His personal writing was missing. Letters between them two were missing. And she was just so upset by it. As in, I mean, she has a fire in her belly, bless her, and she wants to take it as far as possible. But there are things that can be completely failed and missed, and people should know where to go with these things, because if I feel like when people start asking uncomfortable questions and they start questioning, why is this missing? Why have we not been told straight away? Why have we been told this, but then you're saying something else to me? Why have I not been allowed to see my loved one? But all of these things, it can really very much feel like the prison will be closing ranks on itself and just sort of trying to, preserve themselves rather than potentially admitting failure and then admitting liability. But people just need to know who to ask. Let me just pull it up because I had it all written down exactly so I don't get things missed up. If you've got any other questions, Vic, or anyone else, feel free to ask me because my throat is starting to give in. Also, I mean, as much as there is plenty of failures that people will be faced with, especially in death and custody processes, I'm not here to just sit and bitch about the system and say, well, it's all prison's fault. It's all family liaison officers' fault. They are all neglectful, they are all corrupt, they are all horrible. That's not what it is. And there is a lot of good officers working in the prisons, but they just cannot work with what they are given, and they are given very little sometimes, and it can be just a perfect storm more often than not. So I'm definitely not here just saying it's all shit officers or unqualified officers, because you can be as qualified as possible, but when you faced with a case of we're short-staffed, you're a family liaison officer, but as a manager I can't release you from the prison to go to the family today because we just can't. We're too short-staffed. I need you on the landing, so you're gonna have to just make a quick phone call. I'll give you half an hour, go, kind of thing. The sooner you start, the better. And that's what you're faced with. And then you're sat there like, this isn't right. This isn't right. This shouldn't be done like that. I should have been able to go out, speak to the person, speak to their family, and break the news as gently, as empathetically and sympathetically as possible. But we can't. We can't always. And it can be a very difficult process for the staff as well. I'm not defending people. I'm just saying there are two sides of the story. The system is not fit for purpose at all. We've already said it with Levi on Friday. It needs to be petrol bombed and scrapped. It's not just simple reforms that are going to get used. There needs to be a fucking bomb dropped on it. Another thing that I completely missed, after the police releases the cell, and it ties in with what families should be asking for, is documents of cell clearance. Because, and that was also my advice to Deb when she said her letters were missing with her fiance, her medical documents, someone else's ID got sent and stuff like that. Families should be asking for cell clearance reports because they should be kept recorded within the prison. So a cell clearance can take absolutely ages. It can be a half an hour effort, or it can be 3 hour effort. It all depends on the person who lived in that cell. Some people live very modestly and they literally have very, very basic items. A lot of the lads, especially if they are staying in for another few months, um, they they will have a lot of shit in their cell, and you need to go bit by bit of it. Hi, Matt. In regard to light dark approaches to prisoners, when does light work, as in rehabilitation and therapy, and when does dark work, as a punitive measure and cruelty? I wouldn't call it cruelty because I've never actually witnessed genuine physical cruelty. Maybe mental one, but I wouldn't call it cruelty. I think it was just ignorance and neglect rather than cruelty. I can only speak for myself, and I went into that job knowing that it's a prison service. It's not a volunteer scheme. That should be accepting random people into it. They should be accepting people who literally are so passionate about helping people in no matter how hard circumstances, because it's very easy to go up to someone on the street who's crying and ask, "Are you okay? Do you need a hug?" And that person will break up and be like, "Oh my God, yes, I need a hug." And you sit with them for half an hour, everything's nice, you buy them a cup of coffee, and off they go on their merry way. It's very easy to do that. Would you still feel the same when you come into a cell and you can see someone in clear distress, for example, trying to self-harm themselves, and telling you to fuck off, you stupid bitch, because you don't know? Get the fuck away from me, because if you step any closer, I'm opening myself up. What do? Do you step closer and risk them doing something themselves, or do you withdraw? These are real situations, and there is a lot of light in the dark, and there is a lot of dark in the light. Someone write that quote down, because I'll never repeat it again. That was a very enlightened quote. You go in and you should be focusing on rehabilitation. You should be focusing on empathetic approach. You should be focusing on, trying to help people no matter what. But there is a lot of absolutely vile creatures in our jails at the moment. And when you're faced with that, when you're faced with just clear brutality, pure, I don't want to say evil, but evil. And I've only ever seen it twice within 6 years of my service, that I looked into someone's eyes and there was just nothing. If you've ever seen a shark's eyes, when they're just dark and there's just nothing there, you're staring into an abyss. That's what I saw, and it was genuinely scary. There was no guessing what's going to happen. And he was also in for murder, so I wasn't really comfortable in his presence. But when that person was then involved in a attack on staff, and he managed to stab an officer with I think it was a little screw. I say a little screw, it was like this big, and he made it into a weapon, but like a ring. So he had it on his finger, so he could just punch and stab at the same time. And he managed to stab my colleague into his side, and I responded to that scene. And I wasn't personally involved in it. I just responded, but there was already a lot of people there, so I never managed to get my hands on. But when you see something like that, and you know that that person is in for such and such offence, and they've just gone up and mindlessly attacked someone who's there working, just because he didn't like his face, or because he was told no, as you will be in prison. Because as much as I'm up for rehabilitation and stuff, it's not a holiday camp. We're not there to coddle you. Then the sort of the punitive measure and the sort of dark is very easy to get into, and a lot of vengeful feelings, let's just call them, can come up, and it's really difficult to deal with it. I was once potted. So basically, well, that particular person, Vic, was, I think, both. He wasn't quite up there, or maybe if he was, it was in a very calculated way. if that makes sense, like a proper psychopath. But I was spotted once last year in January, I think. So basically, it's a term we use in prison when you had either urine or poo thrown on you. Thankfully for me, it was only number one, and that got squirted at me through from a shower gel bottle, and it was for nothing. I believe it was just because he was supposed to repay a debt because he was a massive spice head, and so he had to repay debt, and it was a case of, well, go and attack an officer. That's how you're gonna get out of it. And it was myself and another female officer on the landing. And thank fuck she was there because she's ex-army and I love Emma. And Emma, if you're ever watching this, love ya. And it was just us two. So me, 5'2", little girl, and Emma. And we were just unlocking for the yard. And the lad came out and just squirted me right in the face. Oh, it was disgusting. It went on my face, my hair, my shirt. Thankfully, nothing went on my trousers somehow, but I was drenched. It all went in my mouth, like hit the back of my throat because I was in the middle of saying like, let's go out on the yard kind of thing. And it just went all over. I turned around, went all over my hair, my back. It was vile. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I've just been assaulted. This is so disgusting. This is piss. Oh, nah. I just looked up at my colleague who just was coming off the other land, and she didn't know what was going on. She was just like, oh shit, she's wet. Like, what's going on? And I just looked up at her and I went, get him. And we both just turned around, started running after him, pressed the alarm, and it was so funny. I'm sorry if anyone's ever gone through it and found themselves really traumatized, but I just found it extremely funny because when I was watching it on CCTV later on, you cannot see that boy's feet touching the ground. That's how fast he was running away from us because he knew what was gonna happen to him, because neither one of us were the ones to fuck about, essentially. And we got to him. And I was the first who laid hands on him. And before anyone comes in and says, well, you shouldn't be laying hands on him, blah, 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 he's very vulnerable, he's running away from you. Nah, you've just assaulted an officer and a female one of that. I am laying hands on you. And he hit the deck before Emma even got to him. I don't know where I got my strength from or anything else, but yeah, he hit the deck before anything happened. Because all I wanted in that moment was to humiliate him the same way as he just humiliated me, if that makes sense to you, like on a very human sort of level. You've just thrown piss in my face in front of about 30 other lads. So I've just lost respect and my face in front of them all and in front of my colleague, and I wanted to gain that back in a way. Now, I didn't do anything illegal. Now, before anyone comes for me, there was no excessive use of force involved whatsoever. But before even response came, he was ready cuffed to be taken away to the seg. And he was screaming. It was so funny. He was like, it's uncomfortable. And I just remember, whether it was professional of me or not, again, come for me or not, I don't actually care. You can just hear me shout on the body one, uncomfortable? Oh, that's so sad. What's that? Uncomfortable? God. So it's very much darkness can get into you and the vengeful feelings can get into you, especially if a member of staff gets assaulted, especially female member of staff gets assaulted violently, as in not just, I don't want to say just piss gets thrown over them because it's horrific, but when you've got people who get seriously assaulted, stabbed, punched, beaten up, you want to go in and absolutely plaster that prisoner across the walls. That's all you want to do. And there will be prison where it's still happening, especially in the segregation units. My jail wasn't like that. My jail was very much scrutinized, not scrutinized, but like we just wouldn't do it in a way. And I know that there will be plenty of old sort of school officers that'll go in and say, well, your jail was soft in a lot of ways. Yes, it was. And the lads who were staff assaulters were not getting the punishment they were supposed to be getting. However, I did, in a way, disagree with plastering prisoners across walls, as delicious as it would be. Person needs both purpose and meaning. When it's in the cell, how does a prisoner maintain a sense of direction and goal, and how do they connect to meaningful things, item of cherished connection, and so forth? I mean, there is a lot of ways. There is, so all the prisoners are required, if able to, they're all required to engage in some kind of purposeful activity. So it can be either education or it can be work, which they are, but they are getting paid for both attending education courses and work. It's like, I don't want to say like that specific sort of price tag because they slightly differ, but it's between £1.40 and £2 a day. That's what they get paid for attending education and work. It just depends what kind of work it is. And they've got education courses, and there is various different educations. They help lads do the GCSEs first time in jail, or they help them learn how to read, write, do basic maths. There is IT courses. Our prison had a barber shop, so the lads could go in and actually learn how to cut hair. I remember we had a few black lads that would go in and actually sit there and braid the hair properly, because, I mean, again, call me whatever you want, but I think they did such a brilliant job, and very limited amount of white people would be able to do it because we just don't deal with that type of hair. And so they were able to, do that for their community. So that was the purposeful activity. And it really depends on a person when it comes to maintaining sense of direction, because every person will have different values. Every person will have focus on different things. To some people, keeping in touch with family will be everything they need. Some people will just have, let's say, a girlfriend, and that'll be their sense of direction. If some will be dead set on the sentence plan and working through that and getting the parole. To some, parole will be like, that's my sense of direction. I'm doing everything to get my parole. Not everyone is like that. Or I'm working towards just being released. At the end, that's my direction. That's what I'm focusing on. Another will focus on religion. There is religious services for all sort of major religions. If you're declared in reception as an atheist, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, Sikh, they will have a chaplain in a certain religion coming in on basically the daily. They take turns. There will be one main chaplain for ourselves. The main chaplain was first a Christian pastor, I believe. I don't think he was Catholic. I think he was Protestant. And then the main chaplaincy was taken over by a Muslim imam. And there were other chaplains from different religions being provided. So that can be a sense of sort of belonging also introduced within the prison. And there was a lot of lads who were attending religious services. They were doing big sort of Eid festivities for Muslim lads. They were doing Christmas services for obviously Christian lads. On over the holidays. So it's very much an involved, like a part of prison life. There is a chaplaincy service, and people get sort of moved around there. There will be people who will be fully focused on going to the gym, and they will not be focused on anything else, because going to the gym will be helping their mental health, it'll be helping them stay in shape, stuff like that. Now, we come to, that sounds brilliant, doesn't it? Plenty to do to keep yourself occupied in jail. There is a library, you can get books from the library, you can read, you can, qualify yourself in God knows whatever things. You can go to online university and get a degree. But then there is an issue of short staffing. If there isn't enough staff to unlock you for the gym, or to then be in the gym with the instructors, or if there isn't enough instructors, you're not going. If people from education don't come in, or there isn't enough officers to staff education building, you're not going. If there is, I think it was last year, we had really heavy snowfall, and I'm not kidding, there was 15 of us all together that turned up, and that was between officers and SOs and managers that turned up. So the only, no one got out, nobody, not even the kitchen lads. It was just literally staff in the kitchen, like as in the kitchen staff were cooking meals for everybody, and they were dish out by the officers and stuff like that. Like it's all relying on staffing. You can get as many books as you want, and yes, you can read them in the cell. You can get it's called distraction packs from mental health, but again, that will get you to a certain point. But when the prisons are consistently short-staffed, there is only so much fucking reading you can do, being backed up in a cell, realistically. So it's difficult sometimes, and some people find it dead easy. There is plenty of men. Again, I've never worked with females in jail, but a lot of men will say, prison is dead easy. I don't care. Like, I don't mind prison at all. It's a piece of piss. I'll read my family, it's fine. That's all I need. Or I'll do in-cell exercises if I can't go to the gym. Like, they'll be really headstrong and they won't get distracted by it. But there are some that cannot ride the bang up, and they will really struggle. And even family connections, even access to books, access to whatever that you could think of will not help, because they are too preoccupied with the fact that I'm in the cell 23 hours a day because the prison is short-staffed. I don't want to be in the cell 23 hours a day. I understand I'm in a prison, but at the same time, I've got my human rights. And you find a lot of that. You find a lot of sort of, I'm entitled to this, I'm entitled to that. Like, and we can go into semantics of, what you're entitled to and what you're not in a prison, but it's just really difficult to manage a lot of the time. Anyway, and it's all reliant on staff. So they are allowed to have the holy books with them as well. So Bible, Quran, and they're able to have in the cells, and that will not be searched or touched within a cell search, because it's a holy book, essentially. Oh, thanks, Matt. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was really nervous about this live going on my own without Fran. But I've really enjoyed it, actually. And Vic, which jail are you working at? I could answer you personally, as in like through messages, but because I've got a tribunal case against my jail, I cannot say just yet. A lot of people try to out me from my old jail because they absolutely hate what I do these days. Oh, you don't have to apologize, it's fine. I fully get it. But yeah, people absolutely hate what I do these days, and they think that I'm just sort of clinging onto the uniform because like I hated the job, but I still want to keep the uniform kind of thing going. But all I'm doing is just trying to help people. But at the same time, I'm also fighting my own fight with the system. So I just thought, well, why not help other people's with their fights, if that makes sense. I think, oh, so just before I wrap it up, because I was answering Matthew's question, I just wanted to add the places where families can complain after a death in custody. In England and Wales, I don't know what the system is like in Scotland because that's a completely different ballgame and different kettle of fish, and I have no idea how it works. But usually families can contact more than one place. The main ones would obviously be the prison themselves and the family liaison officer, but I have seen it and heard from people's experiences where, especially in Deb's case, she was banned from contacting the prison because she was like complaining and bringing all these things to light, and they just got basically sick of her doing it, so they banned her from contacting the prison. Really strange, but you know. So the prison family liaison officer for immediate concerns updates any sort of contact problems with the family liaison officer, any property issues. So when it comes to like cell clearances and stuff like that, that's what you're doing. That's where you're going. If you're worried about records being preserved, who's handling the family contact, that's the questions that you should be asking, and you're asking them to the prison or family liaison officer. Then the prison themselves or the family liaison should be given sort of follow-up guidance to the family, and they should be referred to the coroner's officer to then be able to assist them on the inquest part of it, because the prison won't necessarily be notified what's happening with the coroner's inquest. So they can then complain to the coroner's office themselves. So any questions about the death investigation, anything about the postmortem, release of the body for the funeral, the inquest themselves. There is a sort of official bereavement guide, I believe, that just sort of walks families through the main process and explains how it works bit by bit. Then obviously they can complain to the PPO, so the Prison and Probation Ombudsman, because they are an independent investigator into the death anyway. Then there is an organization called Inquest, and that provides independent support for families, sort of advice, advocacy, to assist after death in custody. They're not like an official investigator per se, because they don't have a say in your particular case, but they are specialists, and they're experts on what procedures should be done, what a family should expect, what family should be getting, what they're entitled to, and they should be able to assist you with any failures that can arise. And not a lot of people know about them because the prison won't necessarily tell them straight away, like, oh, by the way, if we screw up, contact these people. They won't be told. So I think that's something that's often missed for the families. And to sort of summarize it all, if you are a family member, or even if you're currently in prison and you're watching this somehow, there isn't just one door to go through it all. The death in custody can raise so many issues, and there can be so many problems along the line with the whole process. So don't feel like you can't ask questions. You are entitled to ask questions to the prison, to your family liaison officer, to the coroner's office themselves, the PPO, and especially when it comes to independent advice from Inquest. And if you want to contact me directly to help you explain the process or anything like that, feel free to DM me, either via email. It's insideoutjusticeuk@gmail.com. I'll just put it in the chat. Inside Out Justice. I've got my Facebook, my Instagram, my TikTok, YouTube. So please free to email me or contact me directly, and I will help you as much as I can, because every case will be different. But there are always ways to deal with it. And if you ever need support, I'm happy to signpost you anywhere you wish. Now, if there is any other questions that you would like me to answer, just please let me know, because it's been an hour and a half, and I probably should want to wrap this one up, because that's what usually how long we stay on with Fran, and my throat and my nose are giving up anyway. But please, guys, if you found this interesting, informational, please, thank you, Vic. Please hit the subscribe button, put the notifications on. I release my content on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That are my usual episodes. I might drop in a couple of shorts during the week as well. Sometimes I'll drop a bonus episode if there is something sort of all of a sudden that's happened. Like I did a bonus episode on Prince Andrew. So again, it's never just about the person themselves. I take them and I treat it as a sort of like a case study, and I explain what would happen. So if a very high profile person would go to prison, what would happen? Would they be put as a Cat A? Would they be put straight away on a VP wing? Things like that, because not everyone will know how the thanks, Karen, how the system works. So again, I dropped that episode. I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think that I did my bonus episodes on. I did another one on the radon gas leaks, where they found poisonous gas leaking in about, I think, 16 prisons were actually confirmed. There was about 30 odd or 40 odd that were being investigated as well. That will be causing gas will be causing like lung cancer issues and stuff like that. And it's like, people don't go to work. Yeah, Dartmoor was one of them. Dartmoor was closed, I think in 2024, I want to say, because of that. But funnily enough, it's still, even though it's closed, we are still paying for it. And we are paying, because I did some research into it, and we are still paying about £4 million every year to keep it functioning, because it's leases on the land, taxes and stuff like that. So we still are paying. Yeah, we are still paying for Dartmoor, even though it's completely non-operational. There was nobody working there. The gates are closed, and I don't know if there is any works happening on it right now. But the cost of renovation and to repair everything that went wrong will be cost on top of it. So I think the lease is for another, I don't want to guess, it's till like 2030 something. There is another several years that we have to pay as taxpayers through MOJ, that we're going to have to keep paying for Dartmoor, because they can't just end the lease on the land. So yeah, not ideal. So yeah, I just do things like that and bring those issues to you on my channel through the custody context of things. I'm not a headline commenter. I don't care about the headlines as much. When it came to Ian Huntley, I don't particularly care about Ian Huntley. I think we can all feel the same way. But it was more a case of, okay, he died. A lot of people now all of a sudden heard, oh shit, death in custody. So I thought, not a lot of people know about this, and they just all presume different things, and a lot of them are usually wrong. So that's why I started doing my series on death in custody, to help people understand and seek support. This weekend, Joe, yes, he's, what's his name normally? It's John Shannon, I think. When we first found out about it, because it was a couple of days ago that we found out, people were like, oh, there's this celebrity that died in prison. I was like, celebrity? I was like, yeah, go on. And they said, obviously, John Shannon. And I was like, who is that? Because never heard of him. I came to the UK in 2013, not a clue who that person was. So I was like, well, not a celebrity for me. And then they said, oh, well, he's a sex offender. And I was like, oh, well, definitely no celebrity in my world then. I was like, don't care. But yeah, he died in prison. He was found, I believe, in his cell. I don't really know the official cause of death because it's obviously not been confirmed just yet. It's too fresh to find out cause of death officially. So it's going to be exactly the same process. And because it's slightly high profile, because a lot of British people will know who he is. I don't have a fucking clue, but a lot of people will know who it is. He will still be handled very sort of diligently, and there will probably be a prison spokesperson that's going to make a statement about that. So we don't know what happened. There is no official cause of death. We don't know if it was self-inflicted, whether he had a shared cell. I don't know anything like that, and I've not found any confirmed details. So that's why I don't want to sort of get tangled up into it, because there is a difference between gossip and credibility. And I'm interested in what can actually be evidenced and found and factually backed, rather than just focusing on gossip, because to me, as an ex-screw, that's what accountability looks like to me. It has to be proven, written down, and sort of, backed up by evidence, not just landing gossip. Because landing gossip is what gets people seriously hurt sometimes and seriously misinformed. So yeah, I think I'll be wrapping it up now. Thank you so much, especially Vic and Karen and Matt, for asking the questions. I really, really appreciate you guys. I really enjoyed it, even though it's my first live on my own. And it's such a shame that Fran couldn't join us, but please give us a subscription to both mine and Fran's channel. I'll see if I can tag Fran's channel on here as well, because I wouldn't be able to do any of this. I've always said she's my YouTube mum, because she got me into doing YouTube. And yeah, I owe her so much. So please get Fran a follow. I'll just put her. There you go. That's Fran's channel. Give mine a subscription. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, obviously on YouTube. And when you watch my content, please feel free to comment and ask questions. I love the questions and I love answering to them. I even answer the shitty comments where people call me a pincushion or say that I've got no credibility because I look like that. So I reply even to them once. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Again, subscribe, comment, and we will see you next week, hopefully with clean noses, no throat pain, and hopefully Fran will be feeling better soon. So Fran, if you're watching this, I hope you're feeling better soon. And yeah, good night, guys. Bye.